Today's story is King Midas and the Golden Touch. Story: once upon a time, a king named Midas was extremely fond of gold. Although he was blessed with enormous wealth in his kingdom's treasury, he was always unhappy. He would constantly think of the wealth he could amass and wanted more. He thought that if he had the golden touch, that would make him the happiest man on earth, as anything he touched would turn into gold. One day, King Midas was counting his gold coins. A Greek god appeared before him and granted him a wish for a few of his good deeds. Without thinking much, King Midas quickly wished for anything that he touched to turn to gold. The Greek god granted King Midas the wish of the golden touch and vanished. Sometime later, when the king was seated under a huge apple tree in his garden, an apple fell beside him. The king picked up the apple, and the apple immediately turned into gold. The king could not believe his eyes. He touched the apple tree next, which turned into gold as well. Whatever the king touched turned into gold. The king was so thrilled that he went about touching all random things around him, and all those things turned into gold instantly. The king was filled with joy and was dazed with excitement. He then entered the palace in a daze full of excitement. Soon, the king was hungry and was looking to eat some food. However, whatever food he touched turned into gold. Thus, the king could not eat anything, even though he was starving, leading to extreme disappointment. King Midas had a daughter named Marigold. Seeing that her father was hungry, disappointed, frustrated, and troubled, Marigold came running to her father and threw her arms around him to comfort him. But to his utter horror, even Marigold turned into gold as he hugged her back. The king was struck with disbelief and horror. He had turned his dearest daughter into gold too. King Midas's heart sank, and his face turned pale with unbearable grief and pain. He was distraught when his daughter turned into a golden statue. The king cried in agony and was repentant that he had wished for the golden touch. It took no time for the king to realize that his greed was his biggest fault. His greed had given him the lifeless golden statue of his innocent little girl. He then pled to the Greek god to take away his wish. Soon, the Greek god reappeared before the king and took pity on his condition. The Greek god took back the golden touch from the king. The wise god told King Midas to take a dip in the pond of his palace and then sprinkle the pond's water on the things he wanted to change back to their previous condition. The king obediently followed what the Greek god asked him to do. After taking a dip in the pond, he sprinkled water on Marigold, and she was back to normal again. The king was delighted to see his beloved daughter back to her usual self and promised never to be greedy again. The moral of the story is, greed can lead to the loss of what we truly cherish. Contentment is more valuable than endless riches.